Hey everyone, and welcome back. Today's drawing tutorial is going to be a little bit different from my other tutorials, and we are going to have a couple of extra steps to make a very unique drawing collage. So I'm going to be drawing a sea turtle, but then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this colored sheet of paper. You can see I just scribbled the color on, and I'm going to cut it up and I'm going to put it on my drawing. And I know that probably doesn't make too much sense right this second, but once I have it all done, it'll look really neat. So for this video, what you will need, as opposed to the other videos where you would just have a piece of paper and the pencil, is you're going to need your pencil or your marker, whichever one you're drawing with. You are going to need another piece of paper that you have colored in completely. So I colored mine kind of all this direction. You don't have to do that. You could just scribble this with all kinds of rainbow colors and it would still work for this project. It doesn't need to look neat. It doesn't need to look tidy. It doesn't have to be any set of colors in particular. You just have to make sure that you have a big sheet of paper, or rather just the same size as you're drawing on, full of color. So color the whole thing in and then it'll be ready to go. So you may have to pause this video to go ahead and do that part of it. There's no specific way you need to color. You just have to make sure it's all filled in with color. So I have this sheet of colored paper, my regular drawing pad, pen to draw with, scissors, and I also have glue. So all of those things are what you're going to need. If you need to pause this video to go ahead and get stuff ready, I totally understand. This would be a good place to pause. So for right now, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to get started. And to do so, I am going to start by drawing the turtle's head. This is not going to be one of the drawings where I actually have like a whole lot of details inside of my drawing. It's going to be a very, very simple one. So it should come out really cool once it's all done. Here we go. Okay, so to start off this sea turtle, I am going to draw kind of an oval shape. I'm going to make it pretty big inside the middle of my page. So I'm have this totally perfectly centered on my paper, and I'm going to take up most of the middle of my paper with this, but you want to make sure that you still have room for the arms and the legs. So I'm going to make, so it's like an oval, or it could also be interpreted as an upside down egg. So just like that, that's going to be our turtle shape. Now the next thing that I'm going to do is I am going to come outside of that shape to draw my legs. The leg is going to be like a hook shape. It's going to come down to about halfway down the shell. Made a point, and then I'm going to come back, and then that's it. So this looks kind of like a giant apple seed shape. And then I'm going to go over to the other side, and I'm going to do the exact same thing, but flipped. There we go. So it goes about halfway down the shell. You can see it's kind of like an apple seed, very oval. As of right now, it kind of looks like a person's face, like with pigtails. I think that's kind of funny. Now the next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to draw these little feet that are on the back. Sea turtles have smaller back feet than they do front feet. And these are going to be a different shape than these ones. So you can see this is kind of like a gumdrop shape, or it just comes off here, curves, and comes right back in. I'm going to do the same thing on this side, come back, curve, come back in, just like that. And you can tell these are pretty much the same size. So that's the first part of our sea turtle. And now we need to draw our head. So I'm going to do that. Very, very simple. So it's just like a gumdrop that's a little bit longer, and it goes higher than these two like shoulders right here. So you want to make sure it's longer than these two shoulders, because if you have a tiny little head right here, it's going to look silly. So try to get that pretty proportionally accurate. Now the next thing we're going to do is we are going to draw the inside of the shell. That can be kind of daunting, but I'm going to make it a little bit simpler for us. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to draw just like a second oval like that. So it literally is just the same shape as the outside, but smaller and on the inside. And then I'm going to draw a few hexagons. So I'm going to draw two big hexagons. So that's going to be a point like that, flat on the bottom, a point here, and then flat on the top. That is a hexagon. Now I'm going to draw another one. So I'm going to do flat on the top. I'm doing it right next to that one. Point, point, flat on the bottom. And if you don't want to do these exactly like hexagons, like what I have, you could also just do like ovals. And then I'm going to do another one right up here. Point, flat on the bottom. And then I'm just going to kind of round it on the top. So that one doesn't really look exactly like the other ones, but that's okay. So I have two big ones, and I'm going to have two kind of small ones. Flat on the top, point, point, round on the bottom. And then you're just going to have these kind of like round shapes that just fit in these side pieces. So they're round on the outside and they're kind of pointed on the inside, so they just point to the middle. Round, point, round, point, point, round, point, round. Now that's going to be everything that I'm going to draw for the inside of the turtle shell. I know it looks a little bit complicated, but hopefully that was a good way to break it down for us. The rest of the details would be these really tiny little squares that go in here, but I'm not going to draw those. What I'm going to do is I'm going to start cutting out pieces of the paper that I have that's colored, and I'm going to glue them in there so it's going to look like they're in color. So I'm going to start by cutting one little one, and I'm just going to kind of like guesstimate. So let's say this is kind of like a rectangle. It's not like a perfect rectangle, but you can see it's just really small. And then I'm going to glue it right there. And then I'm going to continue that all the way around the outside. You may have to adjust these because I think that mine is too big here. So if you need to just adjust them by cutting them to be smaller, you can do that and it should turn out just fine. A lot of this video is just going to be me cutting out the pieces. So if you need to fast forward, go ahead and do that. That piece was a little bit big for right there, so I'm going to put it right there. I could probably make it smaller, but that's okay. I'm not really interested in doing that right now. And if you want to cut pieces and make sure they're kind of like the same length across, you can make this even faster by cutting a line like this. So I just cut a line along the bottom, and then I can start making more pieces at a time. All right, now I've got a bunch of pieces that I can put on here. That one was a little bit more of a tiny circle. I gotta cut more. So I'm going to do that same trick I just showed you where I cut a long line of my paper. And now I can cut some more pieces. And you can see I'm really not being exact about how I cut these pieces because I know it doesn't really matter too much if they're perfect. As long as they all fit in here, it'll look really cool in the end, just kind of like a stained glass window or like a mosaic. Looking pretty good. And the more color that you have on this paper that you're cutting out to be the pieces of the shell, the cooler this is going to look when it's done. Because if the color is really light, it'll look kind of blah. It won't stick out at you. I'm almost done with the outside of the shell now. I think I might have two more pieces. There we go. So now I have the outside of the shell done. Now what I want to do is I kind of want to guesstimate to try and get these shapes because I would really like to have those shapes with the color inside. So I know that it's going to be a little bit hard to get those just the right size. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start by cutting kind of an oval like this. And that oval, I'm going to kind of put it over all of these and see which one does it fit best in. I think it fits best in that one. So I'm just going to try and cut a shape that's pretty similar to that. And if it's a little bit bigger or a little bit smaller, I'm not too worried about that. If it's bigger though, I think it'll look better. So see, this is bigger than the shape that I drew, but it fits really well. So if you make a shape that's bigger, it'll probably look better than if you make a shape that's smaller. So now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to glue that one down. And that looks good. Now I'm going to make another one. And again, I'm just kind of cutting these big oval shapes. Then I can make them more exact once they're here. Okay, so that's sort of the same. A little too big still. Let's see, does that fit better there? There. Looks like it might fit really well right there. Let's try that. Yep, I think that's a good spot for it. There we go. That looks really cool so far. Now I gotta try and get those middle shapes done. Way too big, that's all right. Still too big. I would say that's very close, maybe even closer to this one. Yeah, I think this is where this one needs to go. Let's see. Yep, that's just right. I have my last piece in the center there that I need to cut. It's gonna be too big. Just about there. I'd say that's about right. There's a little bit of the edges sticking out, but that's not a huge deal. Especially if you drew this in pencil. Since I drew it in a pen, I can't actually erase anything. But if you drew it in pencil, it'll be really easy to just erase any edges. Now I'm going to try and make these little pieces here. Those ones are going to be a little bit easier than the bigger ones because they're so small. And also for these ones, you can kind of get away with making almost like circles. I'd say that doesn't really fit there too well. It does fit pretty well on that one. Perfect. That one fit really well right there. That looks pretty good right there. Not totally perfect, but I think that'll work. I think that one looks like it fits pretty well there. Just trying to cover up a little bit more of my line. That looks pretty close. All right, now I'm gonna do these tiny little ones. Then what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna cut out pieces that I'm gonna put over the fins and the head. So you wanna make sure that you still have enough of your colored drawing paper to do that. I think the piece I cut was a little bit too small for that one. That one looks better. There we go, 2 left. That one might be a little bit small for that spot. Let's try it down there. That's better. There we go. So now I have all of the pieces in the middle of the shell filled in, and then I have my little rim around the outside filled in. So the last part to this cool project is we're gonna fill in the head and the legs and then it'll be done. And this is just our really neat drawing that ends up looking like a cool collage once it's done. Kind of like stained glass window, kind of like a mosaic. So I'm kind of gonna guesstimate. How big do I think that is? Okay, I'm just gonna cut a notch like that because I know that's about the right length. So you saw that I just kind of held it up to here, and that helps me to gauge how big I need that to be. There we go. And I'm just gonna perfect that. Just like that. Now I have a perfect turtle leg, number one. And now I'm gonna hold this side up here. How big is that gonna be? Like right there? That's about right. You can see I'm just cutting out like a pickle shape or like a hot dog shape. So in this case, I kind of cut it backwards. So I'm just gonna take that and then I'll fix that up. That looks pretty good. And I'm just gonna make a little bitty divot right in here so that we can fit that up against the body. See, that just made that curve right there. Now I'm gonna go ahead and glue that leg down. There we go. Now I'm gonna go ahead and make my turtle's head. Let's go ahead and make it right there. I would say it's about this tall. So I can just kind of make a rectangle that's about that tall. And then I can gauge where I need that to go. That actually looks pretty good. So I can glue that down. There we go. I didn't round this out, but that's okay. Now I'm gonna go ahead and do the little back feet, and then this guy will be totally done. This is a really neat project. So let's see. I would say that's about how far across that foot is. Rounded out the bottom. Let's see if that fits. It does. Perfect. All right, now we have a foot. And I gotta hold up my paper to my other foot and make sure that we have the right distance across. There we go. Okay. This one I think I'm gonna have to cut a little bit. Oh, it's better. All right, that'll be the last foot. There we go. And that is how you would do a mosaic turtle. So I hope that your turtles came out well. I would love to see some of the results. And I hope you enjoyed this.